Today we're gonna make a 7-layer bar.
Here's a list of ingredients for the 7-layer bar. This is an old family recipe. We take a 1/4 cup or a half a stick of butter and we're gonna melt it in the 9x13 pan right in the oven. We have the oven set at 350. And we're gonna put the stick of butter in the pan. And we're gonna go ahead and show all the other ingredients first. We're gonna need 1 cup of graham cracker crust. What we did is we just bought some graham crackers and we're gonna chop them up, put them in a bag, and then line the 9x13 pan. And then we need 1 cup of shredded coconut. And we're not gonna need this whole bag, but this is the smallest bag. And then we need a package of chocolate chips. And again, it says 6 ounces and a normal bag is 12 ounces, but we always put a little bit more chocolate in. And then we have a bag of vanilla chips. Same thing, 6 ounces, but we always put a little bit more in. And then we have a bag of butterscotch, and same amount, 6 ounces. And we're also going to use about a cup of chopped nuts. And then we're going to use sweetened condensed milk. I bought the fat-free. So here's our 1/4 cup of butter. We're going to put it in our 9x13 pan and then put it in the oven for it to melt instead of melting it in the microwave. This way the pan gets hot and the butter melts. Okay, here we are. We're going to go ahead and put our butter in our pan, and then we're going to put the pan right in the oven. This way the pan will get hot and the butter will melt. The oven's set at 350. This should just take a couple minutes. We don't want to burn our butter. And in the meantime, we're going to take our graham crackers. We need about 1 cup of graham cracker crumbs. So what we did is we bought regular graham crackers and we're going to crunch them up. The best way I've found to crunch these up is put them in a plastic bag and then take a can, because the can's a little bit heavier than anything that's plastic, and then just kind of give it a couple taps, crunch it up a little bit. With a clear bag, we can see which pieces are broken and which are not. Then we can crunch this up. And we have graham cracker crumbs. This way, we don't have to buy the box of graham cracker crumbs that tend to get a little bit stale because you usually don't use the whole amount. So while I'll just finish crunching these up a little bit.
Once you're done crunching up your graham crackers, we're going to
go ahead and check our pan. If we take a look, it doesn't take very long for that to melt, so we're going to take that out. We don't want the butter to burn on the bottom, we just want it to be nice and hot.
How long did you put that in the oven for?
This was probably in for a good 4 minutes. The pan's hot, so be careful. So what we need is 1 cup of these ground graham cracker crust. So we're just going to go ahead and measure that into a 1 cup measuring cup. And then we're going to pour it in with the pan, and then we're going to lightly press it down. It's going to be hot, so watch your fingers. We'll just press it down and we're making a graham cracker crust. Now we're going to take 1 cup of our ground up graham crackers. I didn't know how much would make a cup, so I just did 1 sleeve of the graham crackers. And as you can see, we'll have a little bit left. That's okay, we could always use it for something else. So here's 1 cup. We're going to sprinkle it in the 9x13 pan with the melted butter. We got to kind of move quick since this butter is melted, but now that it's out of the oven, it's going to start cooling down. So we're going to spread it. I do have a couple of big chunks here, but that's okay. Kind of spread it. And I think I'm going to put a little bit more graham crackers just so I got a nice layer all the way along the bottom. So I'm going to grab the rest of the graham crackers and I'm just going to pour them in. And I'm going to spread it. So it's nice and even along the bottom. Okay, the next step of what we're going to do is, again, with the amount of ingredients, we're going to take 6 ounces, or about half the bag, of the chocolate chips. Same amount, 6 ounces of the vanilla, 6 ounces of the butterscotch, and about 1 cup of coconut. The coconut on top actually really sticks it all together. I'm not crazy about coconut, but I do like it in this recipe. Once we're done, we're going to take our condensed milk and pour it all over the top, and it basically makes it all stick together. And then we're going to sprinkle up our nuts. I had put these also in another bag, and what I'm going to do is also kind of crunch those real quick. I don't want it totally ground up and powdery, but I don't want these big chunks of nut. So we're going to go ahead and take our chocolate chips first. We're in a nice cup, and then we can always sprinkle a little bit more because at the holiday time you always need extra chocolate. And it doesn't have to be holiday time. You can always have extra chocolate. And we've got a couple different layers here, so we're not making a cake or anything. Let's just sprinkle a couple extra, just for fun. This way you can get a bite, and every bite has all the different flavors, which is nice. Now we're going to take 6 ounces, or about a cup, of the vanilla. Kind of different. You have a couple different flavors mixed in. And we're sprinkling this. This is a very easy recipe. It's an old recipe. We've been making this one for many, many, many years. As you can see, our recipe book is all family recipes. Those are always the best. And usually the easiest. Now we have butterscotch. Butterscotch isn't something everybody's crazy about, but with this and all the different flavors mixed together, it's kind of a nice little tang. I don't think I'd be crazy about the whole thing being butterscotch, but mixed with the chocolate and the different flavors, it's a nice mix. Then we're going to take our coconut. Again, 1 cup. You'll have some left over. You can always use it maybe if you're making a bread or something different. We'll sprinkle the coconut. Oops, I got a chunk, so I'll kind of break that up a little bit. You don't want a big mouthful of coconut, but sprinkle that around. You can also, it's 7 layers, so you could do any kind of 7 layers. You can do raisins, you can do different flavors, mint chocolate chip chips, white chocolate, any kind of flavor you want. It's just having a bunch of different flavors mixed together. Now you have everything in, kind of give it a little press with your hands. Of course your hands are clean, so that's not a problem. Kind of squish it all down. And then now what we're going to do is we're going to sprinkle our condensed milk. Now this is condensed milk, not evaporated milk. Some people get the two of them confused thinking they're the same thing, and they're not the same thing. You're going to get a different result. I bought the fat-free because we might as well cut a little calories. We're going to just sprinkle this on nicely. I tend to go in like a diagonal. That way you don't get a big glop in the corner. And then once you've reached that, kind of go around a little bit, try to hit all the spots you did not hit. Because the condensed milk will kind of adhere everything together and make it into the bar. So that way when you cut it, it doesn't fall all apart. The graham cracker crust kind of tends to break apart a little bit, but that's okay. It all tastes good. So let's just scoop out the rest of it. And then what we're going to do before we put it in the oven, we're going to break up our nuts. Now these are walnuts. You could use pecans, you could use any kind of nut you wanted. I'm going to just let the air out because I can feel there's some air in here. And this is about 1 cup also. So I'm going to take a can again. Okay, now that we have kind of crunched up our walnuts, it's not a total fine powder, but there's still some chunks in here. So we don't want a big chunk of walnut, but we don't want it totally ground up either because we're going to sprinkle it on top. So again, we're going to use about 1 cup, and this is probably very close to 1 cup. So I'm just going to kind of pour it in. There we are. That's about, not too bad. So I'm going to sprinkle this on top. And then once I've sprinkled this all on top, I'm going to again mush it down with my hands. And again, this has the condensed milk. The condensed milk is going to hold everything together. That way when we cut it as a bar, it won't hopefully fall apart. So let's give this a little crunch. It's kind of sticking a little bit, but that's okay. See, it's kind of sticking, but that's all right because it's the condensed milk. kind of give it a good mush. Oops. And then I'm going to put it in the oven at 350, and I'm going to do it for 30 minutes. I'll set my timer. Okay, it looks like our 7-layer bar is done. We had set it for 30 minutes at 350 degrees. Now we're going to take it out. Oh, looks good, doesn't it? So what we're going to have to do is we're going to have to wait for this to cool before we can cut it. Since it's evening right now, we're probably going to wait until tomorrow morning to actually cut it because it would just end up being just kind of like a goopy mess. So what we're going to do is let it totally cool. I'm going to put it on a wire rack. This way it won't get mushy at the bottom because the air will go up and it'll cool from the bottom. Also, if you have a stove like this that actually has grates, you could leave it on that, but since my coconut got all over, I got to clean that stove. So we're going to let it sit here, probably let it sit for quite a few hours to cool down, and then what we're going to do is cut it into squares. This is good to be used for family gatherings, potluck at work, school. We're going to cut them into nice big squares, and then that way you'll get flavors of all 7 layers. So we'll see you again when we cut it up when it's cool. Now that we let the 7-layer bar sit overnight and cool, what we're going to do is cut it. I started cutting it already. The edges are usually a little tough, so you might have to kind of chip those out. But this is the finished product. You can see that you can see all the layers. These are good if you're going to just have one dessert. But what I would normally do is if I was bringing this for a school function or work function, holidays, I'd probably cut these a little bit smaller. This size, if not a little bit smaller. That way someone could have like a 2-bite. 1 bite, 2 bite, and then the piece is gone. Versus taking a large piece, since this is really rich because we have all the chocolate, and people might get tired of it and end up tossing it out. So this is a good size if you're going to bring them into holidays, work, potluck, school. And this is our finished product. This is our 7-layer bar. Thank you for tuning in.